Chapter 11:11. It's the law enforcement flag. The law enforcement flag that rules the world. The law enforcement flag that was created by the ancient Saint Emperor. Discussions broke out in the crowd as many of them had serious looks in their eyes. The law enforcement flag was created by the ancient Saint Emperor when he created the law enforcement army. It was used to rule the world. 30,000 years ago, wherever the law enforcement flag passed, everyone would tremble in fear. However, after the war 30,000 years ago, the ancient Saint dynasty was weakened and the law enforcement army was useless. Since then, the law enforcement flag had lost its deterrence. It had been many years since anyone took out the law enforcement flag. However, the moment the law enforcement flag was taken out, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Do you think you can stop us by taking out the law enforcement flag? How naive! You must die today. An old man yelled out as he took a step forward. With every step he took, sword chi would spread out, slicing apart the void one after another. This was an existence that surpassed the 4th level of the spirit god realm. In fact, it was even higher than the 5th level. He was too strong. How dare you? The law enforcement flag is here. We are the law enforcement army. By raising the law enforcement flag, we represent the ancient Saint dynasty, the royal family, and the ancient Saint Emperor. You people from the Sky Martial Sword sect have no respect for the royal family and the ancient Saint Emperor. Are you people from the Sky Martial Sword sect trying to rebel and destroy the Xie family and replace them? Lu Ming stood straight and pointed his spear at Wu Tsang's back as he shouted. His words swept through the crowd like a storm. The 3 old men from the Sky Martial Sword sect looked terrible and solemn. Lu Ming's accusation was too big. He directly accused them of wanting to rebel and destroy the Xie family. Although the Sky Martial Sword sect really had such thoughts, how could they say it out loud? Moreover, the Sky Martial Sword sect didn't have the strength to do so now. The Sky Martial Sword sect has wild ambitions. You look down on the royal family and the royal power. Today the 8th prince is here. Are you going to rebel in front of the 8th prince and look down on the royal power and the Xie family? How can the 8th prince tolerate you? At the end of his words, Lu Ming looked at Xiezhen. Lu Ming had noticed Xiezhen a long time ago. Everyone else also turned their gazes to the 8th prince. Xiezhen's face fell as he cursed Lu Ming 1,000 times in his heart. Lu Ming was using him as a shield. But what could he do in this situation? Lu Ming took out the banner. The banner had been created by the ancient sage emperor. His ancestor had represented the face of the Xie clan. Lu Ming was a member of the law enforcement army, acting on behalf of the sage emperor. If the Celestial Martial Sword sect wanted to make a move against Lu Ming, or even kill Lu Ming, it would be the same as slapping the Xie clan's face. In this sort of situation, Lu Ming had once again dragged him into the water. If Xiezhen didn't do anything, and word of this reached the ears of the other members of the Xie clan, or even the sage emperor, he would have to bear the consequences. Moreover, there were more than a dozen princes at the moment, and they weren't very harmonious. They were fighting openly and covertly. If he didn't handle it well today and caused the imperial Xie family to lose face, there was no guarantee that the other princes would use this point to attack him. Thinking of this, Xiezhen gritted his teeth, wishing he could chop Lu Ming into pieces. 8th prince, am I wrong? Lu Ming continued to ask. You're right. In the end, Xiezhen gritted his teeth and stepped down from the air to stand beside Lu Ming. He faced the 3 elders of the Celestial Martial Sword sect and said unwillingly, the 3 of you, Commander Ming Lu is right. This time, the Celestial Martial Sword sect's disciple committed the crime first. The law enforcement army will handle this impartially to protect the imperial clan's face. After saying that, Xiezhen felt even more disgusted than if he had eaten a dead rat. He felt so sullen, so sullen. What was his goal in transferring Lu Ming to the law enforcement army? Wasn't it to let Lu Ming offend these major powers, and then be slapped to death by them? But now, he had achieved the early results, but the later results were completely different from what he had expected. Not only was Lu Ming not slapped to death in the end, he had to step in personally to protect Lu Ming. What kind of situation was this? He felt so sullen. He hated Lu Ming so much that he almost broke his teeth. The 8th prince is right. As expected of the imperial clan's outstanding talent. You 3 old men, If you want to kill me today, you'll have to step over the 8th prince's dead body first. Come on, if you have the ability, come on. Lu Ming shouted. Xiezhen almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What did he mean by stepping over the 8th prince's dead body to kill him? Xiezhen was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he couldn't back down now. He could only glare at the 3 elders of the celestial martial sword sect while gnashing his teeth. In the eyes of others, Xiezhen had a strong sense of righteousness and wasn't afraid in the face of danger. However, they didn't know that it was because he was angered by Lu Ming. The 3 elders of the celestial martial sword sect had ugly expressions. The 8th prince, Xiezhen, wasn't Lu Ming. If they killed him, then so be it. Xiezhen was the son of the sage emperor, and they were in the holy city. If they dared to kill Xiezhen in front of everyone, they would definitely incur the wrath of the imperial clan Xie family. They wouldn't be able to leave the holy city. Among the crowd, there were many members of the law enforcement army who came from the other law enforcement halls to watch the show. They felt their blood boiling, and their hearts were filled with joy. All these years, the members of the law enforcement army had been too cowardly and sullen. Their lives were worse than dogs. When the people from the major factions committed crimes, they had to take out origin stones and treasures to ask the other party to apologize. How were they going to live their lives? Now that they saw this scene, they felt a sense of exaltation. It felt too good. Law enforcement army, law enforcement flag. The current sage emperor is enforcing the law. A burly man shouted and stepped out. A large flag suddenly appeared in his hand. Law enforcement flag. At this moment, another law enforcer from the law enforcement hall stood beside Lu Ming, holding the law enforcement flag in his hand and inserting it beside Lu Ming's law enforcement flag. Law enforcement army, enforce the law on behalf of the sage emperor. Another group of people shouted and rushed out, standing behind the burly man. All of them were from another law enforcement hall. There were more than 100 of them. Haha, that's right. Law enforcement army, enforce the law on behalf of the current sage emperor. Another person laughed and rushed out. Another law enforcement flag appeared and was placed in a row with the first 2. Haha, I'm here to enforce the law on behalf of the current sage emperor. With loud roars, law enforcement army members appeared one after another. Law enforcement flags appeared and were placed in a row. In the end, a total of 9 law enforcement flags were placed in a row, fluttering in the wind. Law enforcement hall members from all over the holy city had arrived. They took out their law enforcement flags and were ready to fight alongside Lu Ming and the rest. Nearly 1,000 people stood behind Lu Ming and Xiezhen, glaring angrily at the 3 old men from the Sky Martial Sword sect. Usually, they would swallow their anger and suffer in silence. But today, they were ready to go all out. The surrounding crowd looked at the scene in shock. 9 law enforcement flags were out. How many years had it been since something like this happened? Today it happened again because of Lu Ming. Now, what would the Sky Martial Sword sect do? Damn it. Xiezhen roared in his heart. But in this situation he could only hold on. Chapter 11-12. They could neither advance nor retreat. If they advanced, they would offend the ancient Saint dynasty. If they retreated, they would lose all their dignity. They looked coldly at Lu Ming, their eyes filled with murderous intent. They could not wait to tear Lu Ming into pieces. It was all because of Lu Ming that such a situation had occurred. Just as the 2 sides were in a standoff, a ray of golden light appeared from afar and shot towards them. It was so fast that many people could not react to it. Before they could react, the ray of golden light had already appeared in front of them. A dignified middle-aged man appeared in the air with his hands behind his back. He was wearing a golden dragon robe, a golden crown, and a pair of golden boots. He exuded a majestic aura that made it difficult for everyone to breathe. It was as if they were facing a human king who was inspecting the world. Royal Uncle, Xiezhen exclaimed when he saw the middle-aged man. Everyone was shocked. If Xiezhen called him Royal Uncle, he must be the younger brother of the current sacred emperor. An important figure from the imperial Xie family had appeared. As expected, it has appeared. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Today's matter had blown up. Lu Ming was certain that the Xie family of the royal family would definitely send someone to protect the dignity of the royal family. After all, although the ancient Saint dynasty was weak, it was still the strongest force in the central continent. Xiezhen's royal uncle looked at Xiezhen and nodded. You are not bad. He then looked at the three elders of the celestial martial sword faction and said, there are rules in the holy city. You are not allowed to kill innocent people in the holy city. If you have a grudge, you can fight on the battle stage. No one cares about your life or death. However, killing innocent people in the holy city is an act of disrespect to the ancient Saint dynasty. The law enforcement army should enforce the law. You are guilty. Xiezhen's royal uncle's voice echoed throughout the area. Everyone was shocked. Then they realized what was going on. The ancient Saint dynasty was nearing the end of 1,000,000 years, and things had gotten out of hand. The imperial Xie clan had to protect the dignity of the imperial clan. If they were to compromise in front of the Sky Martial Sword sect, the imperial clan would lose even more of their dignity in the future. If today's matter hadn't been blown out of proportion, and the celestial martial sword sect's expert had slapped Lu Ming to death, everything would have been over. But now that things had gotten out of hand, the imperial Xie clan had no choice but to support the law enforcement army. The three elders of the Sky Martial Sword sect had ugly expressions on their faces. They were well aware of this fact. Then what do we have to do to let him go? The three elders of the Celestial Martial Sword sect exchanged glances. One of them spoke up, clearly admitting defeat. The law enforcement army naturally has its own rules. You can discuss with the commander of the law enforcement army about what to do. The middle-aged uncle said, I've already stated my conditions. Just do as I said. If you're guilty, you should be punished. Lu Ming squinted his eyes and chuckled. The three elders of the Sky Martial Sword sect had gloomy expressions. After pondering for a while, one of the elders took out a storage ring and waved it a few times before tossing it over to Lu Ming. Lu Ming caught it and scanned it with his spiritual consciousness. His face darkened as he said, Why are there less than 500,000? Don't you want this guy anymore? Lu Ming pointed at the disciple of the Sky Martial Sword sect that he had killed. You've already killed him. Do you still want to keep him? One of the elders of the Sky Martial Sword sect asked. A corpse is still a person. If you don't want his corpse, I'll throw it out to feed the dogs. Lu Ming said indifferently. You. The elder of the Sky Martial Sword sect was filled with killing intent. However, Lu Ming looked at him indifferently without any fear. In the end, the Sky Martial Sword sect had no choice but to give in. For the sake of their reputation, they could only take out another 500,000 origin stones. Trash. Take them away. Lu Ming waved his hand and Wuxia and the other three disciples of the Sky Martial Sword sect flew into the sky. An elder waved his hand and caught them. He stared coldly at Lu Ming and said, You are good. Very good. I hope you can stay in the sacred city and the enforcer army forever. After saying that, he snorted and turned into 3 sword lights, disappearing from the place. Huff! Huff! The crowd of onlookers let out a long sigh of relief. Their eyes were still filled with disbelief. This matter had actually ended just like that. The elder of the Sky Martial Sword sect had charged in aggressively, but in the end, he left behind a few million origin stones and left with his tail between his legs. Before this, no one had expected such an outcome. Everyone's gaze landed on Lu Ming, this awesome commander. Before this, no one would pay attention to a mere commander of the enforcer army. However, he had attracted everyone's attention now. First, he suppressed Wuxia with his powerful combat strength. Then he blocked the attack of a level 4 spirit god expert. Although Lu Ming used a treasure, it still proved his powerful combat strength. However, what was more important was his courage and wisdom. He dared to face the elder of the Sky Martial Sword sect alone, and was good at borrowing the power of the imperial Xie family. He even borrowed the power of the ancient Saint Emperor, who created the enforcer army to force the elder of the Sky Martial Sword sect to retreat with his tail between his legs. It was hard to believe that all of this was done by this bearded man. With such means, if this person was 10 years younger, he would be able to compete with all the heroes in the world. Jenner, let's go. In the sky, The middle-aged imperial uncle glanced at Xiezhen before looking at Lu Ming. "What's your name?" the middle-aged imperial uncle asked. "Ming Lu." Lu Ming replied in a tone that was neither humble nor overbearing. "Ming Lu? Good. You are very good." The middle-aged imperial uncle said a few words before waving his hand and leaving. "He has ill intentions towards me?" Lu Ming looked at the sky and pondered. Lu Ming didn't feel any kindness from the middle-aged imperial uncle. Instead, he felt ill intentions. After pondering for a while, Lu Ming revealed a cold smile on his face. He could roughly guess why the middle-aged imperial uncle had ill intentions towards him. Now the ancient Saint dynasty wanted to form an alliance with some overlord forces to increase their strength. However, although Lu Ming seemed to have defended the dignity of the imperial family, he had also offended the Sky Martial Sword sect. Moreover, he had forced the imperial family to offend the Sky Martial Sword sect. It would be harder for the imperial family to form a good relationship with the Sky Martial Sword sect in the future. The middle-aged imperial uncle naturally didn't have a good impression of Lu Ming. In his heart, he probably wanted to slap Lu Ming to death for being a busybody. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He didn't mind. After all, he had infiltrated the Imperial Dragon Guards and then the Enforcers because he wanted to use this identity to investigate Xian Yanqing's whereabouts. When he found Xian Yanqing in the future, he would just leave. Who would be able to find him? Mighty. The commander is mighty. At this moment, the Enforcers were the most excited. They were so excited that they were trembling. It was as if they had eaten a chilled watermelon during the hottest days of the year. They had been sullen all this time. However, today they could finally hold their heads high. Even an overlord force like the Sky Martial Sword sect had admitted defeat before the Enforcers, paid a large amount of origin stones, and left with their tails between their legs. This kind of satisfaction was brought about by a sudden outburst after a long period of sullenness. It was better than anything else. Chapter 11-13. Commander is invincible. Commander is mighty. Commander Ming is mighty. At first, it was Tai Xing and the others who were shouting. Later on, the other enforcers from the disciplinary hall also shouted. Lu Ming raised his hands, and the crowd quietened down. "Brothers of the enforcers, I'm grateful for your help this time." Lu Ming cupped his fists and said. The 9 enforcers' flags were also a form of deterrence. "Commander Ming, you're too courteous. It's because of you that our enforcers can hold our heads high and let out the frustration in our hearts. We should be the ones thanking you." "That's right. We should be thanking you." The others spoke one after another. "Everyone, you're too courteous. Since you're all here today, I'll treat everyone today. Let's have a good time. Tai Xing, bring some of your brothers and buy some food." Lu Ming took out some origin stones and handed them to Tai Xing. "All right." Tai Xing took the origin stones and brought a few of his men out in a hurry. At the same time, the crowd in the sky also dispersed one by one. Soon, everyone had left. However, the news of what had happened that day spread like wildfire. This time, it was different from the incident with the Huang family. The previous incident with the Huang family only attracted the attention of a small number of people and became the topic of gossip. This time it was against the overlord force, the Sky Martial Sword sect. Naturally, it caused a stir. As for the awesome Commander Ming Lu, his reputation soared. Some people even called him the most awesome enforcers commander in the past 30,000 years. Soon, Tai Xing bought a large amount of food and wine. In the disciplinary hall, a banquet was held. There were more than 1,000 enforcers drinking and chatting in the disciplinary hall. It was late at night before they dispersed. Tai Xing, here are 500,000 origin stones. Take them and share them with your brothers. After the other enforcers left, Lu Ming took out a storage ring and handed it to Tai Xing. "Commander, this won't do. You risked your life to get these. We didn't contribute anything." Tai Xing waved his hands. The others shook their heads. Although they were poor, they still had their principles. "Take it. If it weren't for you guys supporting me from behind, why would the Celestial Martial Sword faction be afraid of us? Take it and divide it." Lu Ming handed the storage ring to Tai Xing, then returned to his room alone. After closing the door, Lu Ming entered the mountain river diagram. With a wave of his hand, A huge pile of ores appeared before him. A total of 3 million. It's time to break through to the third level of the spirit god realm. With a thought, Zhang Xian summoned the bloodline of the 9 dragons. Opening his mouth, he swallowed 100,000 ores and began assimilating them. As the primordial stone continued to be refined, Lu Ming's cultivation level increased rapidly. From the late second level of the spirit god realm to the peak second level of the spirit god realm, he started to break through to the third level of the spirit god realm. 3 days passed in a flash. After Xiao Chun refined 3 million primal stones, the quintessence in Lu Ming's body surged endlessly. It was like countless true dragons roaring in Lu Ming's body. After a while, it slowly calmed down. I've finally reached the third level of the spirit god realm. However, I've used up all 3 million origin stones. Lu Ming opened his eyes. There was a trace of excitement in his eyes. The consumption was huge, but the gains were huge as well. In a short 3 days, Lu Ming's cultivation advanced from the middle stage of the second level of the spirit god realm to the early stage of the third level of the spirit god realm. Lu Ming's combat prowess soared once again. Lu Ming was very confident about the competition that would take place in more than 10 days. Almost 2 years have passed since martial monarch De sealed the Talisman Puppet Sect. The Talisman Puppet Sect can only last for 5 years. There are still a little more than 3 years left. At that time, will I be able to deal with De? Lu Ming could not help but think of the Talisman Puppet Sect. When he thought of this, he felt a lot of pressure. It was too difficult to reach the level where he could deal with De in the remaining 3 years. Based on Lu Ming's current progress, it was almost impossible. Lu Ming shook his head. There was no point in thinking too much. He could only push forward and do his best. Lu Ming stretched his back. His bones vibrated and crackling sounds came from his body. He stood up and walked out. In the following days, Lu Ming regained his calm. Apart from cultivating every day, he would walk around the holy city. Ever since the incident at the Tianwu sword sect, the disciples of the various overlords became much more well-behaved in the holy city, especially in the area under Lu Ming's jurisdiction. They did not dare to attack others for no reason. Even if there was a grudge, they would fight it out on the platform. Lu Ming's days were leisurely and carefree. Soon 10 days passed. The day of the ancient Saint Dynasty's million-year national sacrificial ceremony was approaching. During this period, the holy city was unusually lively. Lu Ming could see experts from various places as he walked on the streets. The Northern Plains martial artists were all tall and sturdy. Even the women were mostly tall. The weapons they used were either spiked maces, giant hammers, or giant axes. They were all heavy weapons, and their auras were wild. They rode on all sorts of mounts, making them easy to recognize. There were also some martial artists who had a gloomy aura. They were either filled with ghost chi or blood chi. Everyone who passed by them gave off a cold feeling. They were all martial artists from the southern underworld. There were also some monks with bright heads wearing kasayas. Naturally, they were holy monks from the western desert. On the other hand, Lu Ming did not see many people from the eastern wilderness. On this day, the ancient Saint Dynasty's million-year national sacrificial ceremony finally began. Buzz. There was a buzzing sound in the sky. There was a strong fluctuation. Lu Ming, Taixing, and the others walked out of the law enforcement hall and flew into the sky to watch. They saw that the sky above the holy city was filled with colorful clouds and heavenly music. The space was constantly distorted in the light. Rumble. Finally, a huge platform appeared in the sky. The platform was neither made of gold nor jade. It was filled with colorful lights. There were dragons and phoenixes flying in the sky. There was also a Qilin walking around. Of course, it was not real. It was formed by a formation. Then tables and chairs appeared on the east and west sides of the platform. The tables and chairs were made of fine jade. There were dragons and phoenixes carved on them. They were extremely luxurious. There were many of them. At a glance, there were more than 10,000 of them. All of them were suspended in the air above the holy city. When the tables and chairs appeared on the east and west sides, a jade staircase appeared in the north. There were 99 steps. At the end of the staircase, a huge ancient altar appeared. The altar was ancient and heavy, as if it had gone through the vicissitudes of time. It was 10,000 meters tall, and disappeared into the clouds. The Holy Emperor has arrived. Suddenly, a voice came out from the palace. The voice rolled and spread throughout the entire holy city in an instant. In the palace, heavenly music sounded. Holy light filled the air, and shot up into the sky. Then a group of people stepped into the air. The person at the front was wearing a golden robe embroidered with a picture of the human king patrolling the world. He looked to be in his 50s. He was tall and sturdy. His body was filled with holy light. There were stars shining in his eyes. He was filled with endless majesty. Chapter 11:14. Beside Xie Qitian, there were two old men with white hair. They looked ordinary, but they exuded a terrifying aura. Lu Ming had seen this aura more than once. The aura of an emperor. The two elders beside Xie Qitian were also sovereigns. In this way, including Xie Qitian, the imperial Xie family had 3 sovereigns at once, which was really terrifying. That was just on the surface. Lu Ming did not believe that there were no emperors in the imperial family. There was a rumor that the previous emperor of the ancient Saint dynasty might still be alive. The ancient Saint dynasty was indeed an ancient force that had been passed down for millions of years. Even though it had weakened, it had a strong foundation, and was not something that an ordinary overlord force could compare with. Behind Xie Qitian and the two old men, there were more than 10 men and women. All of them had the looks of dragons and phoenixes. The older ones were middle-aged while the youngest ones looked like they were in their 20s. There were a total of 15 people, and they were the children of the current emperor. They were the princes and princesses of the ancient Saint dynasty. Xianyinjuan. Lu Ming's heart trembled. In the crowd, he saw a woman who looked extremely similar to Xianyinqing. However, compared to Xianyinqing, she was even colder and more holy. She was like an inviolable goddess who stood high above the masses, looking down on them. Besides Xianyinjuan, there was another lady who was in her 20s. She was in her prime and she was extremely beautiful. Although the lady did not look like Xianyinjuan and Xianyinqing, she was still a rare beauty. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. That lady must be the other princess, Xianyinlin. However, he did not see Xianyinqing. They did not even let Xiaoqing appear on such an important day. They really don't treat Xiaoqing as their own child. Lu Ming clenched his fists. He also saw Xiezhen and the 10th prince, Xieyan. Lu Ming had never seen the other princes before. Behind the princes and princesses, there were some concubines, nobles, ministers and some experts of the ancient Saint dynasty. There were more than 1,000 people who stepped out and landed on the platform in the air. The arrival of the sage emperor, please take your seats. It was that same voice again. It spread through the entire holy city. The person who transmitted the voice was definitely a Zun cultivator. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud laugh rang out. Haha, is Yinyang Palace the first to arrive? A burly, white-haired old man wearing a long robe with the pattern of the Yinyang fish on it arrived in the air with a group of people. This old man's aura was terrifying and shocking, suppressing the heaven and earth. An emperor. This was another emperor. The Yinyang emperor of the Yinyang Palace and his disciples have arrived. That voice resounded throughout the holy city. I wonder how many big shots will come today. Beside Lu Ming, Tai Xing and the others were already so excited that their eyes were shining. The Yinyang Palace was also an overlord force in the central continent. It was extremely powerful and was no weaker than the Sky Martial Sword sect. Brother Yinyang, please have a seat. Xie Qitian raised his hand. Thank you, brother. The Yinyang Divine Emperor cupped his fists and led the experts of the Yinyang Palace to a nearby table. The Demon Emperor of Mount Tianyao has arrived. Immediately, another big force arrived. It was the overlord force of the central continent. Mount Tianyao was very similar to the myriad demon valley in the eastern wilderness. They were both gathering places for demonic beasts, and were led by a demon emperor. Wuxia Martial Emperor of Mount Xiankong, and his disciples have arrived. Cold Blood Hall, Heavenly Sun Palace. Next, many overlords of the central continent arrived one after another. Moreover, each overlord force was led by an emperor. Soon, more than a dozen emperors appeared on both sides of the platform in the sky. In the holy city, countless people's eyes lit up as they looked at this scene in shock. More than a dozen emperors gathered together. This lineup was too shocking and terrifying. It was so rare that it would not happen even once in many years. Perhaps many emperors had gathered in the ancient city of fate in the last battle of fate, but that was in the ancient city of fate. Ordinary people could not see it at all. But now, more than a dozen emperors were in full view of the public. As for the supremes, there were even more, but they were completely overshadowed by the emperors. More than a dozen emperors. What kind of power was this? If they joined forces, they could really destroy the world. By Jean Marshal, Emperor of the heaven-guarding divine army has arrived. Suddenly, a voice was heard, and the crowd fell silent. Everyone turned to look in the same direction. There, a middle-aged man in black armor walked over. Behind him, a group of people followed. Everyone was wearing armor, and their auras were wild and their fighting spirit was soaring. Everyone was filled with an extremely strong fighting spirit, as if they were ready for a big battle at any time. Hiss, the heaven-guarding divine army is here. Someone sucked in a breath of air, and whispered among themselves. In the central continent, if there was a force that was not weaker than the ancient Saint dynasty, it would be the heaven-guarding divine army. If there was a force that hated the ancient Saint dynasty the most, it would be the heaven-guarding divine army. The heaven-guarding divine army was originally the strongest army of the ancient Saint dynasty. There were many experts in it, and they were invincible. Back then, they had helped the ancient Saint dynasty suppress the world, and everyone feared them. They were known as the heaven-guarding divine army. However, in the war 30,000 years ago, the heaven-guarding divine army chose to watch from the sidelines. In the end, the heaven-guarding divine army caused the imperial Xia family to suffer heavy losses. The heaven-guarding divine army then announced that they would leave the Xia family and dominate the world. Some people said that if the heaven-guarding divine army had participated in that war, the imperial Xia family would not have suffered such heavy losses. They would not have been unable to control the world, and the current situation in the central continent would not have happened. Therefore, the imperial Xia family viewed the heaven-guarding divine army as a traitor and an enemy. In the past 30,000 years, the two sides had fought many terrifying battles. However, the two sides were on par with each other in terms of strength. They had suffered losses and neither side could do anything to the other. Yang Patian, one of the 5 great youths, was from the heaven-guarding divine army. Originally, some people thought that the heaven-guarding divine army would not come today. However, they did not expect the heaven-guarding divine army to be here. Moreover, the heaven-guarding divine army was leading the team. Xie Qitian's eyes shone brightly as he stared at the heaven-guarding divine army. He said, "Today everyone is a guest. Please take a seat." "You're welcome," the heaven-guarding divine army said casually as he led the team to a seat at the side. The third underworld emperor of the south has arrived. The western desert's Wuxia Buddha emperor has arrived. The northern plains experts have arrived. The supremes of the eastern wilderness heavenly deity palace, heavenly corpse sect, and sky monster valley have arrived. Following that, announcements were made one after another. In the south, an underworld emperor of the south had arrived. Ghostly chi filled the sky as he led a group of experts. In the west, an old monk had a benevolent smile on his face. He wore a simple kasaya and his body was covered in golden light. There was a Buddhist halo above his head. This was a Buddha, also known as the Buddha Emperor. He was an emperor. As for the northern plains and eastern wilderness, no emperors had arrived. That was because the northern plains and eastern wilderness were the same. There were several major forces entrenched in the northern plains, and they were at odds with each other. The emperors could not leave, otherwise, their enemies might take advantage of the situation. The Wang family's patriarch, Wang Xingtian, and the Jiang family's patriarch. Chapter 11:15. There were 2 leaders from Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, the Wang family head and the Jiang family head. As for Sky Corpse Sect and Sky Monster Valley, they each had 2 supreme martial artists leading them. After everyone had taken their seats, some smaller forces, such as Medicine King Valley, who did not have any sovereigns, came and took their seats on both sides. Of course, Those who were able to take their seats were all reputable forces. At the very least, they had a supreme martial artist. Those smaller forces were not qualified to take their seats. After half an hour, everyone had arrived. Let the ceremony begin. As the voice sounded, the huge altar started to shine. Endless light bloomed and the entire holy city was shrouded in the light. Xie Qitian stepped out and climbed up the 99 stone steps to the bottom of the altar. The imperial family, Xie family, and the ministers all looked solemn as they faced the altar. All the experts from the powerful forces in Divine Region also stood up. The first ceremony is for the first sacred emperor since ancient times, Xie Qitian said as he bowed to the altar. Ceremony was not for the heavens but for the ancestors. Martial artists were supposed to go against the heavens. Naturally, they would not offer a ceremony to the heavens. For the first sacred emperor since ancient times, the imperial family and the ministers followed Xie Qitian and bowed. As for the people from the other forces, they just looked and did not bow. If it had been 30,000 years ago, everyone would have bowed. But now all the major forces had lost their respect. It was good enough that they could come. Naturally, no one would bow with the imperial family. Just as Xie Qitian and the rest were bowing, a beam of light shot up to the sky from the altar. Then a statue appeared. This statue was the first sacred emperor of the ancient Saint dynasty 1,000,000 years ago. He was also the one who had founded the ancient Saint dynasty. Then, Xie Qitian bowed again to offer a ceremony to the second sacred emperor. Similarly, another statue appeared. It was the statue of the second sacred emperor of the ancient Saint dynasty. Then the ceremony continued. On the altar, statues of the past sacred emperors of the ancient Saint dynasty appeared one after another. On the altar, there was a terrifying aura. It was as though the past sacred emperors had been revived. In the end, there were a total of 108 statues on the altar. They represented the 108 sacred emperors who had passed away. The ancient Saint dynasty had been around for 1,000,000 years, and there had been more than 100 sacred emperors. There's no statue of the previous sage emperor. Could it be that the previous sage emperor is still alive? Someone noticed something fishy. Indeed, there was no statue of the previous holy emperor. If the previous holy emperor had already passed away, his statue would definitely appear here. However, it didn't appear now, which meant that the previous holy emperor was still alive. Many sovereigns of the overlord forces had solemn looks in their eyes. Although the imperial Xie family had weakened and could not be compared to 30,000 years ago, they were still not to be underestimated. Hee, that old fellow is indeed still around. The 100 Battles martial emperor of the Heaven Suppression Army sneered. The sacrificial ceremony is over. Bestow wine and pills. Xie Qitian's voice was heard. He then waved his hand and the space split open. The huge altar entered the space crack and disappeared. Then tables and chairs appeared where the altar used to be. The members of the Xie family, as well as the nobles and ministers, sat down at the tables and chairs. Bestow wine and pills. A voice resounded throughout the entire area. Heavenly music was heard again. At the same time, large cauldrons appeared in the palace. These large cauldrons were as big as mountains. Under the large cauldrons, there were burly men who were naked. Each of the burly men carried a large cauldron and walked in the void. Bam, bam. These large cauldrons seemed to be extremely heavy. Every time the burly men took a step, the space would vibrate and ripple in the void. At a glance, there were a total of 108 burly men carrying 108 cauldrons that were as big as mountains. They walked in the void and appeared in the sky above the holy city. After the 108 burly men, another 108 young women appeared. They were all dressed in light muslin, and their curves were graceful. Every single one of them was a peerlessly beautiful woman. Each of the 108 beautiful women held a purple golden gourd in their hands. Bestow spiritual wine and spiritual pills. Hurry up and grab more. Tai Xing and the others' eyes lit up as they stared at the sky. Pour. A voice was heard. Ha! The burly men shouted as they turned the large cauldrons and poured the wine down. Immediately, the spiritual wine in the large cauldrons poured out. Each cauldron was as big as a mountain, and it was unknown how many kilograms of spiritual wine it contained. At this moment 108 large cauldrons fell at the same time, as if 108 waterfalls were falling from the sky. It was extremely spectacular. Moreover, these were all spiritual wines, not ordinary wines. They were made from spiritual herbs, and were very useful for the cultivation of martial artists. Whoosh! The spiritual wine fell from the sky, and the rich wine fragrance filled the entire holy city. It was intoxicating to smell it. Haha, mine. Me too. In the holy city, countless martial artists rushed into the sky and used their methods to draw the spiritual wine to their side. During this process, they could use various methods to obtain the spiritual wine. However, they were not allowed to attack or kill others. Otherwise, they would be killed without mercy. That was the rule. No one attacked or killed others. They only used their own methods to obtain the spiritual wine. Whoosh! Lu Ming opened his mouth and sucked. There seemed to be a vortex in his mouth. The spiritual wine in the sky gathered into a bundle, and was swallowed into his mouth. When the wine entered his mouth, it immediately turned into a warm current that flowed throughout his body. It was very comfortable. The medicinal power of this spiritual wine is not of much use to me. Lu Ming smiled and stopped trying to snatch it. Although the spiritual wine was not of much use to spirit god martial artists, it was definitely of great use to those below the spirit god realm. The lower the cultivation, the greater the effect. Those at the Sea of Soul realm and King realm could definitely increase their cultivation and condense their true yuan. 108 cauldrons that were as big as mountains filled the sky. It was unknown how many kilograms of spiritual wine they contained. The entire holy city was raining spiritual wine. However, not a single drop fell to the ground. They were all pulled by true yuan and collected. Soon there was not a single drop left in the sky. Bestow pills. Then, the voice sounded again. 108 beautiful women pulled out the lids of the gourds in their hands and poured them down. Immediately, pills were poured out of the gourds and scattered all over the holy city. Those gourds might not look big, but the space inside was like a storage ring. It was unknown how many pills were stored in them, and they continuously scattered on the ground. Countless people's eyes lit up as they used all their strength to collect the pills. Lu Ming waved his hand, and a dozen pills were immediately caught in his hand. Lu Ming glanced at them, and found that these pills were not of much use to him. However, they were quite useful to those below the spirit god realm. Among them, there were all kinds of pills. There were healing pills recovering true yuan, detoxifying pills, increasing cultivation, and so on. Chapter 11:16. What extravagant spending! Lu Ming exclaimed. Although the spirit wine and pills were not of a high level, there were too many of them. With such a terrifying amount added together, the value was enormous. The Xie family of the imperial family had put in a lot of effort for this sacrificial ceremony. Obviously, the imperial family had been preparing for a long time. Otherwise, they would not have taken out such a large amount of spirit wine and pills. In the air, the people from the major factions watched with faint smiles. Not long after, the pills in the gourds were emptied. The burly men and women carried the cauldron and the gourds and flew back to the imperial palace. Then, young girls flew out of the imperial palace with all kinds of delicacies and wine, placing them in front of the people from the major factions in the air. Ha ha ha! Today is the million-year anniversary of the sacred dynasty's establishment. Thank you all for coming here and spending this day with me. Come, let me offer you a toast. Xie Qitian raised his wine cup and drank with the major factions. Then Xie Qitian continued. I believe everyone has heard that I intend to choose a young talent as my husband for my daughter, Nian Lin. Today, all the talents from all the factions in the divine region and the 5 major dominions are here. We will have a competition. Regardless of gender, everyone can participate. The person who wins first place will be Nian Lin's husband. Of course, if a woman wins first place, her husband will be pushed back by 1 rank. At the same time, I promise that I will agree to one condition of the 2nd and 3rd place. As long as it is within my power, I will allow you to enter the sacred Emperor Ancient Palace to cultivate. The 4th to 10th place can also enter the sacred Emperor Ancient Palace. It's here. When Xie Qitian said that, many people's eyes lit up. It was finally time for the most anticipated segment of the day. Xie Qitian's conditions were too tempting. Not many people could resist. Today, all the geniuses of the divine region were gathered. There would definitely be an exciting battle. Back then, the War of Providence had taken place in the ancient city of Providence. Not many people had seen it, and not many knew how exciting it was. But today they could see it. Moreover, it wasn't just the Middle Continent's heavens prides today. The South Underworld, West Desert, North Plains, and East Barren Territories' heavens prides had all gathered. Most importantly, numerous top geniuses had stepped into the domain enlightened spirit god realm in succession, and they were about to carry out the strongest battles in the domain enlightened spirit god realm. This was undoubtedly something that everyone looked forward to even more. Many young heavens favorites in particular were rubbing their fists and rubbing their palms, ready to show off their skills. Brother Xie, how should we compete? The Yinyang Emperor of Yinyang Palace asked. There are too many geniuses here today. It's impossible to compete with them one by one. Firstly, you have to be below the age of 30. Then you have to go through a round of selection. Only those who pass the selection can enter the official competition, Xie Qitian said. Then he waved his hand, and from the south of the platform, paths condensed by rainbow-colored lights appeared. There were a total of 18 paths, spreading out in the shape of a fan that was 100 miles long. There were tables and chairs on both the east and west sides of the platform, and they were all filled with people. Only the south side was empty. Xie Qitian must have had a plan. The selection process is very simple. Everyone has to go through this path. Those who pass will be considered to have passed, Xie Qitian said. Those who pass through this path will be considered to have passed? Many people's hearts trembled as they looked at the 18 paths with a slightly solemn expression. Since it was a selection process, it was definitely not that simple. There would definitely be obstacles on the path. Those who want to participate, enter through that door. Xie Qitian waved his hand, and a huge door appeared at the end of the 18 paths. On the side of the imperial family, experts flew towards the door and stood guard on both sides of the door. Only those who passed through the door could participate in the selection process. Let's go. I'm going. Immediately, many young figures flew out from the great forces. There were also young figures flying out from the holy city, flying towards the door. Haha, I'm going. Lu Ming smiled at Tai Xing and the others. You're going too? Commander, the sacred emperor said that only those below the age of 30 can participate. How old are you? Tai Xing and the others looked at Lu Ming suspiciously. Lu Ming had a full beard now. No matter how one looked at him, he didn't look like he was below the age of 30. He was at least close to 40 years old. Moreover, martial artists aged very slowly. Lu Ming's actual age might be a few hundred years old. Lu Ming actually wanted to participate. If he was caught trying to make up the numbers, he would have to bear the consequences. Hey, what's with your expressions? I'm not even 30 years old, alright? Lu Ming looked at Tai Xing and the others in disdain before striding towards the door. Not even 30 years old? Tai Xing and the rest of the enforcers stared with their eyes wide open. Their jaws were almost dislocated. It was simply unbelievable. Lu Ming swaggered to the door. At this moment, there was already a long queue at the door. Lu Ming lined up at the back. Who is that? That bearded man. Why is he lining up at such an old age? Isn't that the awesome commander? What is he doing? Didn't he hear the sacred emperor say that only those below the age of 30 can participate? This weird commander is really audacious. Watch carefully. He will definitely be chased away later. Some people noticed Lu Ming and started to discuss among themselves. Lu Ming couldn't be bothered with the surrounding gazes and lined up leisurely. Soon, it was Lu Ming's turn. Hold it. What are you doing here? Leave quickly. A burly man guarding the door stopped Lu Ming. What am I doing? I'm here to participate in the competition. Lu Ming glared. Competition? The sacred emperor has ordered that those above the age of 30 are not allowed to participate. How old are you? How dare you ignore the sacred emperor's order? You're courting death. The burly man bellowed with an imposing manner. Haha, this weird commander is finished. He dares to ignore the sacred emperor's order. The commotion here naturally attracted the attention of everyone present. Nonsense. Which eye of yours saw that I'm over 30? Let me tell you, I'm not 30 yet. I'm just a little older. Don't judge a book by its cover, Lu Ming said casually. This made many people stunned, and then burst into laughter. Lu Ming didn't look like he was under 30. He was definitely over 30. This guy was clearly trying to sneak in. Many people thought so. You get out of the way, don't block the way. A cold shout came from behind Lu Ming. It was a woman's voice. It sounded very pleasant, but very cold and arrogant. Lu Ming turned his head and saw a beautiful woman. She was tall and beautiful. She was not inferior to Sandalwood Fairy, Jing Kongling, and the others. That's Lu Yusin, one of the 5 great beauties of Zhongzhou State. Some people discussed and looked at Lu Yusin excitedly. So it's Lu Yusin, one of the 5 great beauties of Zhongzhou State. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but take a few more glances. Chapter 11-17. There were 3 or 4 young men surrounding Lu Yusin. They were clearly Lu Yusin's escorts. Standing in the middle of the 3 escorts, Lu Yusin was like the moon surrounded by stars. She was extremely cold and arrogant. She glanced at Lu Ming nonchalantly. There was slight disdain in her eyes. She was like a proud white swan. Big beard. What are you looking at? Is Yusin for you to look at? Why don't you take a piss and look at your reflection? You're already so old, yet you still want to join the competition. Do you want to marry Princess Nianlin? You're really out of your league. Get lost. Beside Lu Yusin, a few young men berated him one after another. These people obviously came to the sacred city later, and didn't know about Lu Ming's achievements. Where did these wild dogs come from? Don't you know the rules? I'm here first. I haven't entered yet. Line up for me. Do you understand? Lu Ming cast a nonchalant glance at the few of them, his eyes full of contempt. You. What did you say? You're courting death. Trash. The young men's faces were ugly as they berated. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't fight here, they would have killed Lu Ming. Lu Yusin's face was also ugly and gloomy. Obviously, Lu Ming's words had included her. This trash doesn't respect the sacred emperor's order. He's obviously over the age limit, yet he wants to sneak in. I suggest that we kill him immediately as a warning to others. A young man in a red robe was the loudest. What if I'm not over the age limit? Lu Ming glanced at him. If you're not over 30 years old, I'll kneel down and eat dirt immediately. The young man in a red robe shouted. He looked at Lu Ming carefully, and was even more certain that Lu Ming's age couldn't be below 30 years old. Okay, I want to test my bone age. Lu Ming shouted and his voice spread far and wide. Approved. Let him take the test. A majestic voice was heard. It was Xie Qitian's voice. Naturally, the rulers had witnessed everything that had happened here. Yes. Besides Xie Qitian, an old man flew out. With a wave of his hand, a mirror appeared. This is the bone testing mirror. It can test your bone age. The old man explained. Then, a beam of light shot out from the bone measuring mirror and enveloped Lu Ming. At this moment, almost all eyes were on Lu Ming. Could it be that Lu Ming was really under 30 years old? That's impossible. He looks like he's almost 40 years old. His actual age must be even older. Wang. At this moment, the bone testing mirror shook. Then 25 wheels appeared, shining with golden light and filling the air. This was the bone wheel. Each wheel represented 1 year. On the bone measuring mirror, there were 25 wheels, which meant that Lu Ming was only 25 years old. Moreover, the 25th wheel was not very bright, which meant that Lu Ming was still a little short of 25 years old. The scene suddenly quieted down. Everyone stared at Lu Ming with their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Oh my god, he's not even 25 years old. This awesome commander is not even 25 years old. How is that possible? He looks like he's almost 40 years old. He's growing too fast. What an eyesore. If he's not even 25 years old, doesn't that mean he belongs to the younger generation? He suppressed Wu Tsang before. There was an uproar at the scene. However, when the last sentence was said, The scene suddenly became quiet again. Yes, if he's not even 25 years old, he belongs to the younger generation. Most importantly, he suppressed Wuxia. If Lu Ming was really in his 30s or 40s or even older, and suppressed Wuxia, it wouldn't be a big deal. After all, he had been cultivating for many years. However, Lu Ming was only in his 20s, which was younger than Wuxia. This meant something different. It meant that this awesome commander was a rare supreme talent who was stronger than Wuxia. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This awesome commander was too awesome. It really exceeded everyone's expectations. It wasn't that no one had thought that Lu Ming was someone else in disguise. However, if he wanted to enter the law enforcement army, he would have to go through a background check. If he could disguise his appearance, could he also change his aura? Damn this guy. Wuxia naturally saw this scene from inside the gate. He immediately gritted his teeth and wanted to bite Lu Ming. Some people from the Sky Martial Sword sect had ugly expressions. They had suffered a great loss because of this commander. The eyes of some emperors flickered as they sized Lu Ming up curiously. Oh my god, Commander. He's only 25 years old? Tai Xing and the rest were completely stunned. If it wasn't for the bone measuring mirror that measured Lu Ming's bone age, they would still find it hard to believe. Behind Lu Ming, Lu Yusin and the other young men's eyes almost popped out. The red-robed young man almost bit his tongue off. Can I enter now? Lu Ming looked at the burly man guarding the gate. Yes. Yes, haha. The burly man laughed awkwardly. And you, what did you say just now? If I'm below 30 years old, you will kneel down and eat dirt. Let's begin now. Lu Ming looked at the red-robed young man and said coldly. Yes. That. I was just saying it casually. I was just saying it casually. The red-robed young man's face flushed red and he was extremely embarrassed. Bullshit. Lu Ming roared and stared at the red-robed young man furiously. Even his beard stood up. A powerful aura burst out and shrouded the red-robed young man. He berated. Where do you think you are? All the sovereigns are here, and the Saint Emperors are seated. How dare you speak casually in front of the Saint Emperors? Who do you think the sovereigns are? Do you think they are the targets of your jokes? I think you are courting death. Lu Ming's every word was like a giant hammer that hammered the red-robed young man's heart. His face turned pale, and there was no trace of blood. No, I didn't. You are spouting nonsense. I didn't disrespect the sovereigns. The red-robed young man shook his head repeatedly with cold sweat dripping down his face. You're still denying it? Then why don't you do as you say? If you don't do it, I'll teach you. Lu Ming roared and moved his body. He suddenly appeared in front of the red-robed young man, and pressed his hand down on the red-robed young man's shoulder. This red-robed young man was a third-class prodigy, with a perfected spirit embryo cultivation. He was worlds apart from Lu Ming, and had no power to resist at all. Lu Ming pressed him down, and they fell to the ground. Bang! After landing on the ground, the red-robed young man immediately knelt down. Next, Lu Ming pressed his head down to the ground. With a bang, the red-robed young man's face smashed into the ground and smashed the ground, causing him to eat a mouthful of dirt. Gulp! Many people in the surroundings swallowed their saliva and stared at Lu Ming with their eyes wide open. This awesome commander was too tyrannical. He really did what he said and made the red-robed young man eat dirt. Impudent. On the west side of the platform, an elder from a large force slammed the table and shouted angrily. This force was Cold Blood Hall, and the red-robed young man was a prodigy from Cold Blood Hall. Many people from Cold Blood Hall glared fiercely at Lu Ming. Calm down. Chapter 11:18. Just now, it was indeed the red-robed youth who said that if Lu Ming was below 30 years old, he would have to kneel down and eat dirt. Everyone, including the sovereigns, had heard it. Lu Ming directly used the sovereigns to suppress the red-robed youth before attacking. Cold Blood Hall could not stand up for the red-robed youth. Interesting. Interesting indeed. He's very bold. Some of the sovereigns around the platform said faintly as they looked at Lu Ming with great interest. What a good appetite. It's the first time I've seen someone who likes to eat dirt instead of delicacies. Lu Ming muttered as he stepped into the air again and came to the gate. Those from Cold Blood Hall were so angry that they almost vomited blood. Lu Yusin gritted her teeth and glared at Lu Ming with an ugly expression. On the other hand, the few young men beside Lu Yusin looked at Lu Ming with fear. They were shocked that the red-robed youth could not fight back against Lu Ming. "Girl, why are you glaring at me? Be careful or I'll spank you." Lu Ming glanced at Lu Yusin's perky butt, then laughed and walked through the gate. Lu Yusin's eyes were red. She swore to herself that if she had the chance, she would make Lu Ming regret it. Lu Ming walked through the gate and came to the front of the 18 paths. Some of the geniuses looked at Lu Ming curiously. They were all very curious. When did such a genius appear? Slowly, more and more people came to the front of the 18 paths. In the end, there were no less than 500 people, all of whom were top geniuses. "Okay, let's begin. Remember, if you fly out or land on this path, you'll fail." Xie Qitian's voice rang out. Whoosh! Whoosh! Immediately, someone rushed up. There was one person on each path. When they rushed onto the path condensed by the rainbow light, a figure appeared on the path and attacked the geniuses on the path at the same time. As the palm print blasted out, the 18 youths on the 18 paths roared, and were sent flying out of the range of the rainbow light path. Failure. In an instant, all 18 youths were defeated. That's the strength of a spiritual god. It's actually the strength of a spiritual god. There are spiritual deities blocking the way. How are we going to charge through? This is too difficult. Many people's expressions changed greatly, becoming very ugly. Along the way, there were actually spirit gods obstructing them. How could those youths in the spirit embryo realm possibly charge through? Looks like a lot of people will be eliminated during the screening phase. That's indeed the case. With a spiritual deity blocking the way, how many people can charge through? That's normal. The Saint Emperor also said that only the top 10 can enter the Saint Emperor's ancient palace. So what if those spirit embryo realm geniuses manage to enter? You're just here to make up the numbers. You might as well get eliminated earlier. Around them, many people were discussing animatedly. On each of the rainbow paths, there was a figure standing with their hands behind their backs. Although they were not real, there was still a powerful aura spreading out. As long as I charge over, I might still stand a chance. Some people's eyes flickered as they began to calculate. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then, another 18 people rushed up. Boom! Boom! The 18 of them struck out with their palms at the same time. Their palms were like raging waves, unceasing and unending. Among them, 17 of them were directly sent flying by the palms and were eliminated. However, there was one person who was a third-class genius. Moreover, he was a powerful figure among the third-class geniuses. His cultivation was infinitely close to the spiritual deity level. He took the palm head-on, but he was not sent flying. Instead, he seized the opportunity, aimed for an opening, and executed an extremely powerful movement technique to charge through. He charged through that figure's obstruction. Haha, I've made it. I've succeeded. The young man was ecstatic as he rushed forward. However, before he could rejoice, another 3 figures condensed in front of him. Each of the 3 figures was at the first level of the spirit god realm. 3 powerful palms surged toward the young man. "You can't play like this," the young man shouted as he was sent flying by the powerful palms. 3 spiritual deities, 3 spiritual deities. How are we going to pass? Many people sighed. It was already difficult to pass one, but now there were 3 on the road ahead. How was it possible to pass? It's almost impossible to pass if you're not a spiritual deity. Someone shook his head. However, there were still people who did not give up and wanted to give it a try. The facts proved that every road was the same. There was only one first-level spirit god at the beginning, and 3 first-level spirit gods at the end. Of course, the strength of these figures was considered ordinary among the first-level spirit gods. Many people failed. Lu Ming saw Shui Jiani and Shizhan of the Heavenly Corpse sect, Dongfang Yu of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, Ao2 of the Sky Demon Valley, Feng Xian, and the others fail one after another. Although their talent was considered top-notch in the Eastern Wilderness, it was very ordinary in the vast Divine Wilderness continent. None of the first few batches succeeded. Until the 6th batch, a second-class genius made a move. This person was an old acquaintance of Lu Ming, Sanguinarum. Sanguinarum directly sent the first spiritual deity flying with a move and rushed past. Then he faced 3 spiritual deities, but it did not cause much trouble for Sanguinarum. Sanguinarum struck out 3 times in succession and repelled the 3 figures before he rushed past. What was shocking was that before Sanguinarum reached the end, more figures condensed on the road. This time, a total of 9 figures appeared. 9 experts at the first layer of the spirit god realm. Boom, boom, boom. The 9 figures struck out a palm at the same time. The 9 palms connected, and the palm force was like a landslide. Sanguinarum's face turned serious. A bloody light flashed and condensed into a blood-red battle saber. He slashed out continuously and broke the 9 palms one by one. However, the 9 figures struck out again after the first palm strike. 9 consecutive palm strikes converged and erupted with terrifying power. The 9 figures seemed to be of one mind, and their cooperation was flawless. A sharp cry resounded. Sanguinarum directly executed bloodline fusion and transformed into a bloodwing bat. He emitted a terrifying sound wave that broke through the palm force, and then his wings were like blades that slashed out and slashed one of the figures into 2. He forcefully charged through the gap and flew forward swiftly. After he charged past the 9 figures, there were no more obstructions behind him, and his path was unobstructed. Sanguinarum became the first person to charge onto the platform. Even then, it still caused many people to have dejected expressions. The difficulty of this was too great. The joint forces of 9 first-level spirit gods were too formidable. Besides those who had broken through to the spirit god realm, who else below the spirit god realm could charge through? But now, besides second-class geniuses, no one in the younger generation had broken through to the spirit god realm. Alas, forget it. It's impossible for me to have any hope. The gap is too great. Someone shook his head and sighed with the intention of giving up. There's indeed no need. There's no hope at all. There's no need to embarrass yourself. That's right. Let's just be a spectator this time. Many people spoke and gave up successively. What a waste of time. At this moment, a cold grunt resounded as a young man stepped forward. Chapter 11:19. Nanming, Underworld Child. Someone whispered as they looked at him with fear. Underworld Child was rumored to be on par with the 5 giants of the central continent. However, he had never fought with any of the 5 giants before, so many people were suspicious of him. The 5 giants of the central continent were all outstanding geniuses. Not everyone could reach that level. Who would believe it without seeing it with their own eyes? Boom. Suddenly, Underworld Child's aura skyrocketed as a terrifying pressure filled the air. Then whoosh. Underworld Child turned into a ray of light as he charged forward without stopping. His speed was terrifyingly fast. In the first stage, Underworld Child rushed past the figure who had just sent out a palm strike. Underworld Child's body exploded and did not obstruct Underworld Child at all. In the second stage, 3 figures attacked at the same time, but the result was the same as the previous figure. Underworld Child rushed past the 3 figures and caused them to explode. Underworld Child's speed was not affected at all. It was as if the 3 spiritual gods were air. Underworld Child's figure was like a ray of light. In the third stage, 9 figures could not obstruct Underworld Child at all. All 9 figures exploded as well. Whoosh! Underworld Child's figure appeared on the platform. Hiss, gasps could be heard at the scene. Underworld Child was too powerful and terrifying. Ordinary first-level spiritual gods were nothing in front of him. In the eyes of many people, Underworld Child had just turned into a ray of black light and arrived on the other side in a flash. The time he used was shockingly short. Too terrifying. His strength is far beyond ordinary second-level prodigies. He has definitely reached the level of the 5 giants. Not bad. This is going to be interesting. The geniuses of the other domains will clash with the 5 giants. It will definitely be exciting. Underworld Child's strength shocked everyone. Haha, then I'll go too. A young man in a golden robe stepped out with a loud laugh. This person was golden in color. He had golden hair, golden clothes, and golden boots. His body emitted rays of golden light, as if he was a small golden sun. Lion Metropolis, one of the 5 giants. Someone recognized this young man. Lion Do was from the Lion Tiger Hall, an overlord force. It was said that he was a golden lion with 90% of the bloodline of the divine beast Sun Lion. He was extremely powerful. 90% of his bloodline had almost become a pure sun god lion. However, there were almost no innate pure-blooded divine beasts in the divine wilderness continent. Those demon emperors had all transformed into pure-blooded divine beasts when they broke through to become emperors. However, this was an acquired cultivation success. There was still a huge gap between them and innate pure-blooded divine beasts. Lion capital, let's go together. As soon as Lion Do stepped out, another young man wearing a 5-colored feather robe also stepped out. Everyone was shocked as they recognized this young man. Kong Lin was a supreme genius of the Wanyao Mountain, an overlord force. It was said that he had 90% of the bloodline of the divine beast 5 elements peacock, and was exceptionally powerful. Similarly, they were 2 of the 5 magnates of Zhongzhou State. Among the 5 magnates of Zhongzhou State, 3 were from the human clan and 2 were from the demon clan. Kong Lin. Shirdo looked at Kong Lin and grinned. The 2 of them looked at each other and moved almost at the same time. A ray of 5-colored light and a ray of golden light respectively rushed towards a different path. Whoosh! Whoosh! Almost without stopping, the light flashed past. Just like Underworld Child, the spiritual deities blocking their path were directly blasted apart. They did not stop them at all. In an instant, the 2 of them had already appeared on the opposite platform. The 5 magnates are really powerful. Many people sighed. This was the strength of the 5 magnates. Compared to them, ordinary geniuses were too far away. Even many second-class geniuses felt powerless. My hair, this poor monk is coming. A Buddhist chant that Lu Ming was very familiar with sounded. A monk with a baby face and a smile stepped out. This unscrupulous monk. Lu Ming curled his lips. Ba. A crisp Buddhist chant sounded. A petite figure stepped forward and came to a path next to the unscrupulous monk. A female bodhisattva. What a beautiful female bodhisattva. Many people's eyes lit up. It was actually a nun. She was petite and wore a snow-white kasaya that was spotless. Her body was filled with holy Buddhist light, like a female bodhisattva who walked out of a painting. She was very beautiful. Even if she did not have 100,000 strands of hair, she was still peerless and holy. One could not bear to look away after taking a glance at her. What a pity! Such a peerless beauty who is not inferior to the 5 beauties is actually a female bodhisattva. Sigh. Many people sighed and felt that it was a pity. Hee, the 2 bald donkeys of the western desert are going to fight. Let me accompany you. With a sneer, a young man in a black robe with black flames all over his body stepped out and appeared on another path. Someone recognized that this person was a genius of the southern underworld. Bam! Bam! On the other side, 2 tall figures stepped out at the same time, attracting everyone's attention. They were Yang Patian and Tuoba Shur of the northern plains. Haha, it's really lively. I'll go then. The unscrupulous monk smiled. His body was filled with Buddhist light, and with a flash of light, he rushed forward. At the same time, the others also moved. They turned into rays of light and rushed forward. On the way, the figures of the spirit gods were useless. The next moment, on the opposite platform, Yang Patian, Tuoba Shur, the unscrupulous monk, the female bodhisattva, and the young man covered in black flames arrived almost at the same time. Almost everyone was stunned. How is this possible? There are so many prodigies of the 5 magnates? Many people gasped and stammered. It was unbelievable. Yang Patian had long been one of the 5 magnates of the Middle Continent. This was not surprising. As for Tuoba Shur, he had fought with Yang Patian a few times and was already famous in the Middle Continent. As for the unscrupulous monk, his performance in the Sacred Mansion's secret realm of the World Academy had also spread. Everyone also treated him as one of the 5 magnates. Those 3 people were not surprising. However, the female bodhisattva and the young man covered in black flames were also terrifying. It was too shocking. Don't tell me those 2 are also as strong as the 5 magnates. How can they compete? The top 10 spots are almost all taken up. Many people sighed. First, it was the Nether Child, followed by Lion Do and Kong Lin. Now there were 8 unfathomable existences like them in total. There were not many spots left. Next, many second-class prodigies began to step forward. Now almost all the second-class prodigies had stepped into the spirit god realm, so such a test was naturally not difficult for them. Those second-class prodigies stepped forward one by one. Lu Ming saw Sandalwood Fairy Jing Kongling, Kong Xian, Jun Yu Di Shun and others. There were also some that Lu Ming did not recognize. This time, most of the prodigies of the Divine Wilderness continent had come. Chapter 11:20. At this moment, a young man with an ordinary appearance stepped forward. This young man was really very ordinary. His appearance was ordinary, and his figure was ordinary as well. He had a medium build, and his face was very calm. He didn't have any overbearing arrogance, nor did he have the noble and domineering aura of a king. He was just like an ordinary young man. However, when this young man walked out, he attracted the attention of everyone. Even the monarch realm experts looked over. Because this young man was Long Chun. Long Chun was a name that everyone in the central continent knew. Because he was the well-deserved overlord of the younger generation of the central continent. He was invincible and could sweep through all his opponents. All along the way, he had never tasted defeat among those of the same generation. During the Battle of Karmic Luck, he'd stepped into the domain enlightened spirit god realm. And he was far ahead of the other 4 great figures. He was reputed to be a rare genius of the central continent in 100,000 years. No one spoke. Everyone's gazes descended onto Long Chun. They wanted to see how he would perform. Bang! Long Chun moved and took a step forward. That's right, it was just an ordinary step. Then he took another step. Just like that, he took one step at a time, neither hurried nor slow, and walked forward step by step. He traversed several kilometers with a single step. His speed wasn't fast. Not to mention being unable to compare to Yang Patian and the others, he couldn't even compare to second-grade prodigies. He took a few steps and arrived before the first figure. That figure slapped out with his palm. Long Chun swung his palm as well. Bang! That figure exploded into pieces. After that, Long Chun continued forward. In next to no time he arrived before the 3 figures in the second stage. He swung his palm again, and the 3 figures exploded into pieces. After that he continued forward and arrived before the third stage. He swung his palm again, and another 9 figures exploded at the same time. He seemed to be very relaxed and carefree. After that he stepped onto the platform again. His speed wasn't fast, but the speed at which he passed the stage was very fast. Those figures couldn't obstruct him at all. So in general he surpassed most second-grade prodigies. This person is unfathomable. Lu Ming stared at Long Chun and noticed that he couldn't see through Long Chun at all. I'll go as well. Lu Ming smiled and stepped forward. He randomly chose a path and charged forward. Lu Ming's performance wasn't too shocking either. Although he managed to break through at an extremely fast speed, his speed was only average among the second-class prodigies. Therefore he didn't cause too much of a commotion. Because Lu Ming was able to suppress Wuxia before, it was normal for him to have such a result. The others were not too surprised. After Lu Ming passed, several second-class heavenly legends passed the test one after another. After these second-class geniuses passed, no one else tried. The remaining third-class geniuses, and even those who were weaker, all shook their heads. There was no need for them to try, because it was impossible. All right, the screening is over, Xie Qitian said. With a wave of his hand, the 18 rainbow paths disappeared without a trace. At the scene, everyone's eyes fell on the platform. There were a total of 40 people on the platform. In other words, only 40 people had passed the selection. Nanming is really something. 2 of them are suspected to be on the same level as the Great Five, and 3 other second-tier prodigies. Northern Plains is also impressive. Other than Tuobashir, there are also 3 second-tier prodigies. I think the Western Desert is unfathomable. They have 2 suspected Great Five, but no second-tier prodigies. This isn't realistic. I don't think even the second-tier prodigies are here. I can't see how strong they are at all. Indeed. The Western Desert has always been unfathomable. They have a long history. No one knows how long ago the Western Desert Saint Monk appeared. Speaking of which, the Eastern Wilderness is really awkward. Only one Tharch passed the selection. Haha. Many people were discussing. Lu Ming looked around. It was indeed so. Central Continent had the most people. Other than him, there were a total of 27 people. 5 from Nanming, 4 from Northern Plains and 2 from Western Desert. However, the 2 from Western Desert were unfathomable. Eastern Wilderness only had one Tharch. Eastern Wilderness? It's just a barren land. Li Lai is the weakest. How many prodigies can there be? It's already good that they have one Tharch. I heard that there's also someone called Lu Ming, who's above Tharch, but he didn't come. He didn't come. I'm afraid he's declined, so he doesn't dare to come. He used to be stronger than Tharch, but now he's probably weaker than Tharch. That's true. Let's not talk about the Eastern Wilderness. Everyone discussed and expressed their opinions. However, when the Eastern Wilderness was mentioned, they all looked at it with contempt. In the crowd, Shuejiani, Ao2, Dongfangyu, and the others' faces turned red. However, they felt helpless in their hearts. They had no choice. The Eastern Wilderness was indeed the weakest. This was an indisputable fact. They used to stand at the top of the Eastern Wilderness, and were full of confidence. They thought that even if they came to Central Continent, they would be able to make a name for themselves. However, ever since they came to Central Continent, they had been dealt a heavy blow. There were too many people in Central Continent who were stronger than them. Even Tharch was only a second-tier prodigy. This made them feel dejected. I wonder what kind of name Lu Ming will make if he comes to Central Continent. He'll probably be suppressed and won't be able to do much. At this moment, Shuejiani, Dongfangyu, Ao2, and the others thought of Lu Ming. However, they thought that even if Lu Ming came, he would probably be weaker than Tharch. The Arch had comprehended the intent of space and was extremely powerful. During the Battle of Providence, Thearka's intent of space was still weak. The intent of space would become stronger as one progressed. They believed that Tharch had already surpassed Lu Ming. Alright, there are 40 people in total. Now let's begin the first round. The rules of the first round are very simple. I've already recorded the time you took to pass the selection. Now, according to the time you took to pass, you'll be divided into 2 groups. The shorter the time, the better the result. The top 20 will be in one group, and the bottom 20 will be in the other. The rule of the first round is that the bottom 20 will challenge the top 20. If they succeed, they'll advance directly. If they fail, they'll be eliminated directly. Moreover, each person can only challenge once. Those who are challenged can only accept one challenge. Xie Qitian announced. What? The bottom 20 will challenge the top 20? Many people's expressions changed. There was no doubt that Yang Patian, Lion Du, and the others had taken the shortest time, and those who were challenged could only accept one challenge. This meant that someone would definitely challenge Yang Patian, Lion Du, and the others. Wouldn't that mean that they would lose? Now I'll announce the names of the bottom 20. Wutsong Sanguinarum. Xie Qitian announced the names of the bottom 20. Those whose names were called had ugly expressions. At the same time, they began to size up those whose names were not called. I didn't expect to enter the top 20. Lu Ming smiled slightly. Apart from him, Sandalwood Fairy, Jing Kongling, Tharch, and Wu Qingkong, the second-grade prodigies that Lu Ming knew, were all in the top 20. Kong Xian Junyu, and the others were in the bottom 20. Lu Yusin was also in the bottom 20. Her expression was ugly. Chapter 11:21. Yang Patian, Lion Do, Kong Lin, and Long Chen were ignored. Tuobashir, and Scrupulous Monk, and other powerhouses were also ignored. Challenging them was no different from admitting defeat. Besides, the Emperor God, who had mastered the space concept, was also excluded. Wu Qingkong, who had always been at the top of the second-grade prodigies, was also excluded. There were also a few others who gave off an unfathomable feeling. There were also Sandalwood Fairy and Jing Kongling, Two peerless beauties who were pursued by many people. Of course, no one would challenge them. There were only a few people left. Many people's gazes swept over Lu Ming and the other two people. Lu Ming had defeated Wu Tsang before, but Wu Tsang was considered weak among the second-grade prodigies. Besides, Lu Ming had used a treasure to block the attack of a fourth-grade spirit god. However, in such an occasion, one would not be allowed to win with a treasure. One had to rely on one's own strength. Therefore, Lu Ming was undoubtedly one of the best targets to challenge. Before we start, I'll say two things. First, this is only a competition. You can't kill your opponent. Second, don't rely too much on external items. You have to rely on your own strength. Xie Qitian announced. You, the bearded man, I challenge you. What are you doing? That bearded man is mine. Get lost, all of you. He's mine. As soon as Xie Qitian finished speaking, a few people stared at Lu Ming, wanting to challenge him. Hey, do you all think I'm easy to bully? There was a fierce glint in Lu Ming's eyes as he scanned the few of them. Wait a minute. This is too messy. We'll do it according to the results. Those with good results in the bottom 20 will have priority. As soon as Xie Qitian said that, the place quieted down. Following which, an old man walked out and reported the rankings of the following 20 people one by one. The more they reported, the uglier their faces became. Those with good results would have priority, so they would definitely challenge the weak. In other words, the last one would be the strongest. For example, Long Chun, Yang Patian, and the others. Who would challenge them at the beginning? Those who were ranked at the bottom would definitely encounter Yang Patian and the others. How could they be happy? Now let's begin. After the names were reported, Xie Qitian announced. I'll go first. Lu Yusin stepped out. Her results were the best among the 20 people behind her. She almost made it into the top 20. Her gaze swept over the crowd and finally landed on Lu Ming. A cold light flashed in her eyes as she said, Big Beard, I challenge you. Previously, Lu Ming did not give her any face at all, and even suppressed the cold-blood hall genius in front of everyone. In Lu Yusin's view, this was a complete slap to her face. She had long wanted to teach Lu Ming a lesson. Now that there was such an opportunity, how could she miss it? Little girl, you want to challenge me? Like I said before, be careful or I'll spank you. Lu Ming grinned as his gaze swept over Lu Yusin's perky buttocks. You are courting death. Lu Yusin's face turned ugly. This guy is really courting death. Shurdo, one of the 5 magnates, emitted a cold light and murderous intent, causing those standing beside him to tremble. Everyone in the central continent knew that Shurdo had always been Lu Yusin's suitor. Since Lu Ming dared to flirt with Lu Yusin, it was obvious that Shurdo had his eyes on him. Lu Yusin challenged Lu Ming. Everyone else stepped back and stood at the edge of the platform. Only Lu Ming and Lu Yusin stood facing each other on the platform. If I don't beat you until you beg for mercy today, I'm not Lu Yusin. Lu Yusin's beautiful eyes were full of cold light. She was confident that she could defeat Lu Ming, because she had not used her full strength in the selection. Swoosh. Suddenly, Lu Yusin moved. She pounced on Lu Ming. The strange thing was that as Lu Yusin dashed out, there were more and more of her figures. 1 into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8. In the end, the platform was filled with Lu Yusin's silhouettes. There were hundreds of them, densely packed around Lu Yusin. This is the illusion demon body technique of the Dark Illusion sect. Lu Yusin has actually cultivated it to this level. How shocking! At the edge of the platform, some second-grade prodigies recognized this body technique and had a serious expression. With hundreds of silhouettes appearing all of a sudden, how could he fight back? Lu Yusin's battle strength was considered above average even among second-grade prodigies. Illusion Demon Finger. With a shout, the hundreds of silhouettes stretched out their hands at the same time. Her slender, jade-like fingers seemed slender and weak, but they exuded a power that was more terrifying than that of a divine weapon. They pierced through the void, aiming to kill Lu Ming. Swoosh. Swoosh. There were finger forces in all directions, aiming at the vital parts of Lu Ming's body. A black spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Ming Lu was from the Black Spear sect, so he had bought a black spear some time ago. It was a middle-grade level 8 spirit weapon. Swoosh. Swoosh! With a shake of the spear, streaks of black spear flowers condensed in the air and flew towards the finger forces. Bam! Bam! There was a series of collisions, and the spear flowers and finger forces disappeared. Wang! Then, the black spear radiance expanded and swept out with a force that could wipe out an army. However, Lu Yusin's body technique was indeed impressive. In the face of such an attack, the hundreds of silhouettes on the platform flashed and dodged Lu Ming's spear. Let's see how many spears you can dodge. Lu Ming held the spear and swept out continuously. The spear radiance was like a black dragon, surging on the huge platform and enveloping the entire platform. Although Lu Yusin's body technique was strong, its power was greatly reduced on such a platform. Soon, she could no longer dodge, and the silhouettes were hit by the spear radiance and dissipated. Humph! Lu Yusin snorted and advanced instead of retreating. Her figure flashed continuously at an incredible speed. Lu Ming's spear radiance was like a dragon, but he could not hit her. When she approached Lu Ming, a gray fog appeared above Lu Yusin's head. On the gray fog, there were 8 golden chakras. This was Lu Yusin's bloodline. Great dream of spring and autumn. At this moment, Lu Yusin transformed into a ball of gray fog. The gray fog expanded rapidly, shrouding Lu Ming within it. When Lu Ming was enveloped by the gray fog, the surroundings suddenly changed. Boom! The heavens and earth shook violently. Lu Ming saw an intense battle taking place in front of him. Talisman Puppet Sect. Lu Ming was shocked. The Talisman Puppet Sect was in front of him. At this moment, the yin-yang formation of the Talisman Puppet Sect was broken. The Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's army was swarming in and charging into the yin-yang mountain. At this moment, both sides were fighting a bloody battle. He saw the 9 Sons Prime, Yen Kuangtu, being killed by Martial Monarch De, by Shijin Du Songjue, and the others died at the hands of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's primes. His parents, his disciples, and his friends were all turned into ashes in the bloody battle. Illusion, illusion, this is an illusion. Lu Ming took a deep breath and his eyes flickered continuously. In the sacred mansion's secret realm, he had entered an illusion created by an existence that surpassed the Emperor realm, and almost got lost. Compared to that illusion, this illusion was too fake. How could it confuse Lu Ming? Chapter 1122. At this moment, at the edge of the platform, the geniuses, the rulers supremes, and many other powerhouses on their seats, as well as the powerhouses in the holy city in the surrounding air, were all staring at the platform. They saw Lu Ming's figure being shrouded by the gray fog. It's Lu Yusin's dream of spring and autumn. That guy called Ming Lu is finished. The outcome has been decided. That's right. Once Lu Yusin's dream of spring and autumn is used, he can only retreat. Once he's shrouded, he'll fall into an endless illusion. Even the top 5 youths would be in danger. Lu Yusin has won. A few second-class geniuses were discussing. They knew how terrifying Lu Yusin's dream of spring and autumn was. This was Lu Yusin's bloodline secret technique. It was very mysterious and unpredictable. After that, no one made a sound and they waited quietly. Lu Ming's eyes were tightly shut in the gray fog. However, 2 minutes later, Lu Ming suddenly opened his eyes. Let's end this. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile as he shouted. The scene of the Talisman Puppet Sect's battle suddenly froze. Then, it shattered like a mirror and turned into nothingness. Lu Ming was still standing on the platform as the gray fog shrouded him. Break. Lu Ming's palm was like a sword as the 5-colored intent exploded and he slashed down. Boom. Heaven and earth shook violently as the gray fog rolled. It was constantly being destroyed by Lu Ming's true origin. In the next moment, Lu Ming took a step forward and dashed in a certain direction. He grabbed with his claw and a terrifying force suddenly erupted. In that direction, the gray fog was destroyed and Lu Yusin's figure appeared. At this moment, her eyes were wide open and her mouth was agape. Her face was filled with disbelief. His true origin condensed into a huge hand and grabbed Lu Yusin. His true origin surged in and sealed Lu Yusin's major acupoints, preventing her from circulating her true origin. As Lu Yusin was grabbed by Lu Ming, the gray fog dissipated. When the crowd saw this scene, they were stunned. Lu Yusin has been defeated and captured. What's going on? Many people did not see what had happened because of the gray fog. They thought that Lu Ming would definitely lose. However, after 2 minutes, the fog dissipated and they saw this scene. Some sovereigns and sovereigns' eyes flickered, but they did not speak. They had obviously seen something. Let me go. Lu Yusin struggled hard in the true origin Han's hand. But her true origin was sealed. How could she break free with just her physical strength? Let you go? Hee, did I forget what I said? Lu Ming grinned, his eyes darting all over Lu Yusin's body. Lu Yusin stared at Lu Yusin. What do you want? Of course it's to spank you. Su, SSS your will. King sovereigns you. How? Lu Yusin glared at Lu Ming angrily. Her threat was self-evident. You dare to threaten me? You're asking for a beating. With a thought, he controlled his true origin and grabbed Lu Yusin. Then he slapped Lu Yusin's round buttocks. Smack! A clear and crisp sound echoed throughout the entire area. Lu Ming's palm slapped Lu Yusin's but hard, causing her but to tremble violently in front of everyone's eyes. Silence. The scene suddenly fell into a dead silence. Countless people stared at the scene with their mouths open. He hit Lu Yusin's butt. After a long time, someone stammered, but he couldn't finish his sentence. They couldn't believe it. The peerless beauty Lu Yusin, who was capable of causing the downfall of nations, was actually being spanked in front of everyone. This was simply inconceivable. How could this Ming Lu be so daring? Lu Yusin was one of the 5 peerless beauties of Zhongzhou State. Of course, more people were envious. Whether young or old, they were envious. Some even had red eyes. They also wanted to slap one of the 5 great beauties of Zhongzhou State, but they didn't dare to. Pervert, lecher. A woman scolded and looked at Lu Ming with disdain. You're courting death. A loud roar was heard, and a terrifying murderous intent erupted. A golden light soared into the sky. Sherdou looked at Lu Ming with murderous intent, wishing he could tear Lu Ming into pieces. As everyone knew, Sherdou had been pursuing Lu Yusin. Since Lu Ming dared to treat Lu Yusin like this, he naturally wished he could kill Lu Ming. At this time, Lu Yusin was also stunned. She stared at Lu Ming in a daze. After a long while, she let out an earth-shattering scream. She was actually being treated like this by Lu Ming in front of everyone. She wished there was a hole in the ground and she could crawl into it. You're dead. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Lu Yusin screamed and struggled desperately. What are you screaming for? How dare you threaten me? Hit me again. Lu Ming scolded and slapped her again. The clear and melodious voice once again echoed throughout the entire area. Everyone's eyes were about to explode, especially the men. They were so envious that their eyes turned red. Some of them were so excited that they were trembling. It was as if they had replaced Lu Ming to teach Lu Yusin a lesson. Commander, he. Tai Sheng and the other members of the law-enforcing army were completely speechless. They knew that Lu Ming was awesome, but this was too awesome. Even some of the sovereigns and supreme beings at the table felt their eyelids twitching. How dare you? A supreme being from the Serene Fantasy sect couldn't hold it in any longer. He shouted and his supreme being aura spread. However, he was immediately stopped by the sovereigns of the Serene Fantasy sect. Today was the ancient Saint Dynasty's million-year sacrifice ceremony. Many experts had gathered. Besides, Lu Ming and Lu Yusin were having a fair fight on the fighting stage. It wasn't appropriate for them to interfere. Ming, you're dead. The golden light on Sherdou's body shone brighter, and terrifying murderous intent shrouded Lu Ming. What are you screaming for? Who are you? Shut the hell up. Lu Ming stared coldly at the lion. He was stunned and berated. The lion was enraged. It almost dashed out to kill Lu Ming. In the end he held it in. With so many sovereigns here, he didn't dare to break the rules. You still dare to threaten me? Lu Ming looked at Lu Yusin again. I'm going to kill you. Lu Yusin screamed. Smack. Another slap was sent down, and Lu Yusin's scream stopped abruptly. The surrounding people were already numb. This awesome commander is too awesome. He's already defying the heavens. He's completely lawless and audacious. Where did this Ming Lu come from? I've never heard of him before. He seems to have appeared out of nowhere. First he suppressed Wu Tsang. Now he's treating Lu Yusin like this. To be honest, I'm really impressed. A Sky Pride spoke. He looked very simple and honest. Everyone recognized that he was a Sky Pride from the soldier manner. I'm me-haired. I'm envious. A Buddhist chant was heard. Everyone was stunned because the person who said he was envious was the heartless monk. However, you're just a monk. What are you envious of? Do you want to go up and have a try? Many people were speechless. Amitba. Chapter 11:23. Are you still threatening me? Lu Ming continued to stare at Lu Yusin. Lu Yusin bit her lips. This time, she did not dare to speak. That's right. I've already warned you twice, but you didn't listen. Little girl, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your elders. Don't hold a grudge. I'm doing this for your own good. Lu Ming spoke eloquently, as if he was an elder lecturing a junior. Coupled with his big beard, he looked like he was in his 40s. He really did have that kind of aura. Lu Yusin could only glare at Lu Ming hatefully. She did not dare to say a word, but she could not wait to cut Lu Ming into pieces. She hated it. In the future, when others saw her, they would definitely think of this bearded man. Alright, that's all for today. Behave yourself in the future. Don't be so arrogant. With that, Lu Ming waved his hand and Lu Yusin flew out. When she flew out of the platform, Lu Ming had already unsealed the quintessential essence in her body. Lu Yusin's quintessential essence spread out. She glanced at Lu Ming with murderous intent, then flew to the seats of the Xuanhuan sect without saying a word. Ming Lu wins this battle. An elder from the Imperial Xie family announced. Lu Ming grinned and walked to the side of the platform. This big brother is amazing. I'm impressed. At the side, Monk Wuliang put his palms together, his face full of admiration. This made the hearts of the people around him twitch. Is this monk really a holy monk of the Western Desert? Haha, master, you're exaggerating. Lu Ming said casually. However, he did not dare to underestimate this monk Wuliang. He felt that this monk was unfathomable. Next, the competition continued. A Sky Pride from Nanming stepped forward. His ranking was second only to Lu Yusin. This person chose a Sky Pride who was slightly weaker. Unfortunately, he still lost and followed in Lu Yusin's footsteps. Next, the challenges continued one after another. The next two contestants were very strong. They both won. However, from the fifth challenge onwards, the challengers began to lose. Kong Xian challenged Wu Chengkong and was defeated. Wu Chengkong's cultivation had actually reached the second level of spirit god. Wu Chengkong must have made another breakthrough during this period of time. Two people challenged Sandalwood Fairy and Jing Kongling, but they both failed. Sandalwood Fairy used her body to carve a formation. The peerless killing formation within her body erupted, and it was extremely powerful. In addition to his alchemy skills, his combat prowess was astonishing. Pure emptiness had comprehended 3 different mentalities. The combination of the 3 mentalities was mysterious and unpredictable. His battling power was also very strong. It would not be difficult for him to defeat his opponent. Immediately, someone challenged Dishun. The concept of space was truly worthy of being called the king of concepts. The further one cultivated it, the more astonishing its power was. In the end, Dishun defeated his opponent and maintained his position in the top 20. Soon, only Long Chun, Yang Patian, and unscrupulous monk were left. The faces of the remaining 9 people who had yet to issue a challenge were extremely ugly. Some people were really unwilling to accept it. After picking and choosing, they finally chose Monk Wuliang. This fellow didn't seem reliable. Perhaps his battle prowess wasn't strong enough? Then the second-class prodigy who had issued the challenge was sent flying off the platform by Heartless Monk. He won in one move. The difference was too great. The remaining 8 people sighed. Knowing that it was meaningless to challenge him, they all admitted defeat. The first round was over. There were 20 people left. Everyone looked at Xie Qitian, wanting to know the rules of the next round. Would it be a one-on-one battle again? In the second round, let's decide the winner and the loser in one fell swoop. Xie Qitian said. The 20 of you will fight in a free-for-all on the platform. You can fight however you want. The score will be calculated according to the time you stay on the platform. The longer you stay on the platform, the better your score will be. In the end, the top 10 and top 3 will be determined. A free-for-all? Everyone was shocked. Xie Qitian had actually used a free-for-all method to let the 20 prodigies on the platform fight to determine the winner. This made the situation complicated. A free-for-all was not a one-on-one battle. They could join forces or form alliances. The situation was ever-changing. Now let's begin. Xie Qitian's voice spread across the entire platform. Whoosh! Whoosh! As soon as Xie Qitian's voice fell, a figure on the platform moved away from the people around him and stared at the others cautiously. Everyone was an enemy except for himself. No one could guarantee that no one would suddenly attack him. Only Longchen looked calm and indifferent. He stood there casually and looked straight ahead as if he did not care at all. On the platform, everyone looked at each other and the atmosphere became extremely tense. Yang Patian, let's continue to fight. Today, we must decide the winner. A loud roar broke the silence. Tuobashir held the mace in his hand and charged towards Yang Patian. That's what I want. I'll defeat you today. The sky halberd appeared in Yang Potion's hand. He took a step forward and charged towards Tuobashir. Boom. The sky halberd and the sky halberd collided heavily. The space was torn apart, and a terrifying force swept out in all directions. Third-level spirit god. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Yang Patian and Tuobashir's cultivation had indeed broken through to the third-level spirit god. They were stronger than when they were in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. Such prodigies were terrifying. Not only were their combat strength shocking, but their cultivation speed was also terrifying. Boom, boom, boom. The two exchanged more than 10 blows, and the entire world seemed to be trembling. So powerful. The second-class prodigies were shocked when they saw this scene. Was this the strength of the young tycoons? They were too powerful. How could they compete with them? Western Desert bald donkeys, I won't fight for a while. Let's see if your strength has improved. The young man covered in black flames stared at Monk Wuliang and the female bodhisattva. Little dog on fire, I'll fulfill your wish. Monk Wuliang took a step forward and his body was covered in golden light. A golden palm print blasted towards the young man covered in black flames. The black flames on the young man's body burned fiercely. It was terrifying as if they were flames from hell. Boom, boom. Monk Wuliang and the young man covered in black flames exchanged a few blows. The flames and the golden light split the world into two sides. The others on the side retreated far away. Fortunately, the platform was big enough and sturdy. Otherwise, the others would not have a place to stand. The commotion caused by the battle between the two was not any smaller than the battle between Yang Patian and Tuobashir. Amitabha. The female bodhisattva of the Western Desert chanted the name of Buddha and stepped forward. With every step she took, a golden lotus would appear under her feet. It was holy and beautiful. Her target was the underworld child. The Western Desert and Southern Underworld had been enemies since ancient times. One was Buddha and the other was evil. The prodigies of the two domains naturally knew each other and had fought many times in the past. This time they naturally clashed as soon as they met. Chapter 1124. As soon as the competition began, the Western Desert and Nanming continent prodigies started fighting. Yang Patian and Tuobashir were engaged in a fierce battle. While the 6 prodigies were engaged in an intense battle, the rest did not move. Longchen stood there calmly. His expression was indifferent and his aura was calm. There did not seem to be anything special about him. However, everyone took the initiative to distance themselves from him. Naturally, no one would be courting death by attacking him. Among the remaining prodigies, only Lion Do and Kong Lin were left. Both of them scanned the second-class prodigies coldly, especially Lion Do. His cold and murderous gaze swept past Lu Ming from time to time. The remaining second-class prodigies were wary of each other and distanced themselves from each other. Brother Lion, Brother Kong, I have a suggestion. Why don't we team up and defeat all of them? That way, there will only be 10 of us left. Wu Chengkong walked toward Lion Do and suggested. Then he scanned all the second-class prodigies, including Lu Ming. The second-class prodigies' expressions changed when they heard that. There were a total of 9 prodigies on the platform. Including Wu Qingkong, there were 10 of them. Wu Qingkong's intention was obvious. Once everyone was defeated, he would be able to secure a spot in the top 10. Lion Do and Kong Lin's eyes flashed as they scanned the crowd. "All right, we'll do as you say," Lion Do said. Lion Tiger Hall was on good terms with Tianwu Sword Sect. Lion Do was also on good terms with Wu Qingkong. That was why he agreed to Wu Qingkong's suggestion. Another reason was that it would be beneficial for them to leave the top 10 on the platform earlier. The prodigies would definitely fight for the top 10. However, if they fought now and someone lost, wouldn't they fall out of the top 10 and be taken advantage of by the second-class prodigies? If they could secure a spot in the top 10, they would be able to fight to their heart's content. Even if they lost, they could still enter the Sacred Emperor Ancient Palace to comprehend. Kong Lin had obviously thought of that too. His eyes flashed as he said, "I agree too." "All right, Kong Lin. Let's team up and get rid of these trash." Lion Do sneered and his eyes were cold. The second-class prodigy's expressions turned ugly. "Wu Qingkong, you're despicable. Damn it. Everyone, I suggest we team up. Otherwise we'll all lose." "All right, I agree. Let's work together." Several second-class geniuses spoke one after another. In a flash, 6 second-class geniuses gathered together, intending to join forces against Shurdo, Kong Lin, and Wu Qingkong. However, Sandalwood Fairy and Jing Kongling did not follow them. The 2 peerless fairies gathered together and retreated to the side. In addition, Dishan did not gather with them. His figure flickered and he retreated. Of course, it was impossible for Lu Ming to meet up with them. "You guys, why aren't you coming over? Do you want to be defeated by them one by one?" A young man shouted coldly as he glanced at Dishan and Lu Ming. "You don't have to worry about me." Lu Ming smiled faintly. "I'm stubborn. You think you have some strength, so you're getting carried away. Let's see how you'll be defeated." The young man scolded Lu Ming. He was very unhappy that Lu Ming did not join them. "Do it." Lion opened his mouth and stared at Lu Ming first. "Brother Lion, you don't have to do anything for this guy. I'll take him down," Wu Qingkong said as he stared at Lu Ming. "All right. The Saint Emperor said that we can't kill him, but that's all. You know what to do now, right?" Lion Do pondered for a moment and nodded. "Don't worry, I'll break his limbs and bones. I guarantee that he won't be able to get out of bed for half a year." Wu Qingkong revealed a sinister smile. Now that he had broken through to the 2nd-level spirit god realm, his combat strength had increased tremendously. He was full of confidence and did not take Lu Ming seriously at all. Bam! Bam! He took a few steps forward, and the sword chi on his body whistled as he closed in on Lu Ming. "How dare you injure the elites of Sky Martial Sword Sect? I'll let you know the consequences now." Wu Qingkong's voice was extremely cold, and his eyes were as sharp as a sword. "Smashing Sky Martial Sword Sect, it seems like you don't learn your lesson. This time, I'll teach you a lesson." A cold light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He took a step forward and struck at Wu Qingkong. Clang! The sword aura let out a long cry. Wu Qingkong unsheathed his combat sword, and a sharp sword aura slashed toward Lu Ming. His cultivation had broken through to the 2nd-level spirit god realm, and his combat strength was much stronger than when he was in the Sacred Mansion Secret Realm. The sword chi cut through the void and slashed at Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming's palm struck Wu Qingkong's sword chi and shattered it. At the same time, his palm continued to strike. Clang! When the palm landed on the sword, there was a loud explosion. The battle sword trembled nonstop. Wu Qingkong felt as if he had been hit by an ancient divine mountain. He could feel a terrifying force surging towards him, causing his body to involuntarily retreat. How is this possible? Wu Qingkong roared, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had been forced back by Lu Ming's palm strike. He was already one of the top 2nd-grade prodigies. Now he was ahead of the other 2nd-grade prodigies, and was the first to reach the 2nd-level spirit god realm. His combat strength was so strong that he was almost invincible among the giants. But now he had been forced back by Lu Ming's palm strike. It was hard for him to accept. The surrounding spectators were also shocked beyond words. This bearded commander's combat strength had exceeded their expectations. Could he really be a match for Wu Qingkong? Boom. Boom. At this moment, Sherdou and Kong Lin had already made their moves. The two of them displayed their terrifying combat strength and attacked the 6th second-grade prodigies like a storm. Although the 6th second-grade prodigies tried their best to resist, they were still at a disadvantage. This showed the terrifying combat strength of a giant prodigy. Dong. Lu Ming took a step forward and the entire platform rumbled. His true yuan surged as he used the suppressing hell skill. Every move he made contained terrifying power. He instantly appeared in front of Wu Qingkong and punched out a few times. The punches carried endless power. The sky shook and groaned as if it could not withstand Lu Ming's punches. How can he be so strong? Wu Qingkong was terrified. He unleashed all his strength and slashed out shocking sword chi with his battle sword. But all of them were suppressed and defeated by Lu Ming's punches. Lu Ming was like a hot knife through butter. Wu Qingkong was forced back. His body trembled and he vomited blood. Explode. Explode. Wu Qingkong activated his bloodline and transformed into a battle sword as he retreated. But it was useless. Lu Ming's punches were too powerful and suppressed everything. Clang. 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 The punches landed on the battle sword. After 7 punches, the battle sword that Wu Qingkong had transformed into exploded. Wu Qingkong's body reappeared, and he was vomiting blood. His face was pale. Defeated, Wu Qingkong was defeated. This result was beyond many people's expectations. Although Lu Ming had defeated Wu Tsong was considered weak among the second-grade prodigies. Wu Qingkong, on the other hand, was a top second-grade prodigy who had broken through to the second-level spirit god realm. His combat strength was much stronger than Wu Tsong's. At first, no one thought that Lu Ming would be a match for Wu Qingkong. This commander of the law enforcement troop is really unexpected. Some of the older generation exclaimed. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.